Hello! Welcome to another ShoddyCast creator commentary. I'm Charles Battersby, the screenwriter who wrote just about everything in Season 2. And hey, look at that! The credits in Season 2 are much shorter than they were in Season 1. Yay! So in Season 2 and Season 1 we had these little wacky introductions, phony commercials for things in the Fallout universe. We ended up not doing much of that in the later seasons, and looking back on the older seasons, I kind of regret that. I think going forward, ShoddyCast, I'll have to have a few more of these wacky little commercials, and in the upcoming movie Fallout Unity, there's a couple more of those. Now, Season 2 introduces Edna, the Storyteller's first supporting character, and the reason we introduced Edna is that we wanted him to have a Jimmy Olsen character. Jimmy Olsen was introduced in the Superman radio show because they needed Superman to have somebody to talk at, so they added in this kid sidekick that would always say, "Gosh, Mr. Kent, what's that?" And it would give Superman an excuse to say, "Well, Jimmy, that's a meteor. Egad, it's heading straight towards the Daily Planet." So we wanted to have a character here that the storyteller could talk at and explain why he's telling this story. And if there were no other characters around in the shot, the audience could just assume storyteller is rattling on to Edna. And in that opening scene there was a reference to there's no red light on Edna, so storyteller doesn't know when she's recording. That was a little hint that we put in right at the beginning, that Edna has her own little secrets, and Storyteller doesn't necessarily know everything there is about Edna, and we ended up calling back to that in the Season 2 finale about Three Dog. In the final season, by the last episode of Season 4, we ended up with Storyteller surrounded by Edna, Daisy the dog, Helen Tanner, and Nora, the sole survivor, and there were so many female characters at that point in the story that people were talking about our radical feminist agenda. So if you're among the people that thinks there's a radical feminist agenda here at ShoddyCast, it all started by calling the robot a girl's name. Our plan in Season 1 had been to try to cover all of the storylines that were involved in the DLC packs from Fallout 3 and from New Vegas, but we didn't get around to doing all of them. And it had been our intention in Season 2 to start right away by rounding off all of the DLC stuff, but we had a lot of viewers that would write in during Season 1 saying, please tell us about the Boomers and tell us about Vault 34. So we decided to do this first episode on the Boomers. It's a fun quest line, and it's also something that a lot of players might just stop by the Air Force Base as part of the main quest line and never really dig into the lore and the history behind what happened to the Boomers and where they came from. One of the things I really like about Fallout New Vegas is that they ran with the idea of the Vault being these cruel and wacky experiments that Vault-Tec was running. It was not even hinted at in the original Fallout game, and then I think halfway through the development of Fallout 2, they came up with the idea of, oh, what if they're not humorously incompetent? What if it's a deliberate design flaw in every vault? And then in Fallout 3, they started tinkering with that idea a little more, and in New Vegas, there's a whole bunch of these crazy vaults, and a lot of them are hidden out of the way where you don't necessarily need to go there. So it's a fun idea, and I'm really impressed with the way that they worked it in, and I think New Vegas, of all the Fallout games, did the best job with making use of that. We had a few ideas when we were planning Season 2 that we never actually got around to using. One was the idea that Storyteller would have a virtual reality device, and when he talked about places on the East Coast or in other time periods, he could step into his VR pod and then suddenly appear on the East Coast or in the back when times before the war. It's a terrific idea, and I like to think going forward we will try something like that, maybe use the memory den from Fallout 4 to justify it. Another thing that I'd wanted to work in, but never actually did, was giving the storyteller a vertibird so he could fly around to different locations. And that also never quite made it in. In Season 3, the idea of doing a road trip occurred, and for that we had our cool car. So there's a couple of episodes in Season 2 where he's just suddenly on the East Coast, like the Gary episode, where, hey, he's just out there where the Garys are, and there's no in-context explanation of how that happens. That's why the Gary episode has the Wild Wasteland music play in the background. It's a way of saying, okay, this episode doesn't really happen. As Season 2 went on, we added in more and more of these musical sequences, these montages, and sometimes my script would just have this little tiny reference to, it's a montage of different famous cannibals. And then, the animators and the director would end up turning it into this huge musical number, dealing with cannibalism, or with the boomers blowing up random people. Another big idea that came with Season 2 is the realization that since Storyteller is now a physical presence in the world, where he is geographically from week to week is important. So in the later episodes, like when he's in Zion Park or at the Sunset Sarsaparilla Factory, his physical location in the world will carry over from week to week. And some of the episodes can be easily edited together to form a longer storyline. And that idea led to the concept that all the episodes in Season 3 would be scenes that can be edited together to form one continuous feature film. So that little line there referencing that the leader of the boomers used to be quite a looker, that's a little bit of hidden lore in the game. The sexy blonde vault girl pinup art that you see in Fallout New Vegas, that's actually her character when she was younger, so that's our little hidden joke there. As the storyteller speaks about the missions that you could do for the boomers, I tried to write Season 2 to not have too many spoilers of what happens with the missions, but I did try to put in a bunch of little hints about things the player could do. We'd hoped that a lot of people watching these videos had played through a lot of the game, but hadn't necessarily done everything there is to do, and hadn't gone to the wiki and poured through all the lore, so I tried to drop in these little hints about things that, maybe people missed, and having storytellers saying, well, maybe this happened, or maybe that happened, or who knows why this thing is here. That's a little way of just enticing our viewers to go out and replay the missions and try to explore all the possibilities within it. Then when Season 3 rolled around, we dropped all pretense of trying to be spoiler-free and just ran through and did an exhaustive look at all of Fallout 1 and 2. Another reason why I tried to avoid putting too many spoilers into the early seasons is that Storyteller's adventure is happening during the timeline of New Vegas, so there's things that he doesn't know how it happens yet, even though the player and the viewers have already gone through the game and they know what happened in their version of the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. The storyteller doesn't know what happens. And I wanted to do it that way so that it wouldn't contradict what players did in their game, their own headcanon. Ah, there he goes, talking about steel. Hey, that's a terribly clever transition to get us back into talking about Pittsburgh, and from there we cover the pit and all the other DLC that we didn't get around to in Season 1. And here we are with the awkward transition of Storyteller just suddenly in Pittsburgh. So if you like these commentaries and want us to do more, call us out on Twitter or in the comment section below, and we'll record more of these on other episodes. And if there's an episode you really want to see a commentary for, let us know about that too, and we'll make that our top priority. I'm Charles Battersby, and I'll see you again in another episode.